Just a day after we tasted freedom, could local lockdowns be back on the cards? The PM's refusing to rule out a return to regional restrictions as the Indian variant continues to spread, but he says it's too soon to say.
At the moment, I can see nothing conclusive in the data to say that we have to deviate from the present roadmap, but we've got to be cautious.
Also tonight, police prepare to excavate a Gloucester cafe in their search for Mary Bastome, believed murdered by Fred West. The nurse who cared for the PM through COVID quits the NHS in protest of the government's lack of respect for health workers. And Lord Price, a night on the cobbles, a treat in store for Corrie's superfans, the ultimate staycation.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. The Prime Minister says we will know more in the next few days about whether or not the Indian COVID variant will delay further easing of lockdown restrictions in England. Boris Johnson insists there is nothing conclusive yet that makes the government think it will have to deviate from the next phase of the roadmap in June. But there is nonetheless speculation that if the new strain is highly transmissible, then not only could lockdown restrictions remain, there could also be a return to tears in England. Here's our health editor, Emily Morgan.
Hello.
There was no subliminal messaging today. Getting vaccinated is going to get us out of this, and the government wants all of us to listen.
Have you been vaccinated? Yes. How do you feel?
As cases of the Indian variant of COVID-19 spread, so too does talk that the planned roadmap will have to be changed.
As things stand at the moment, I can see nothing conclusive in the data to say that we have to deviate from the present roadmap, but we've got to be cautious, and we'll be letting people know in a few days' time.
It's hotspots like Bedford that are causing concern for ministers, where cases are doubling every 5 days.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Roland's only just opened his pub. News the government's still considering local lockdowns is a prospect he simply can't bear to think about.
It's going to hurt hard this time. Another lockdown again. I've just put another beer order in today, so I'm trying to keep all my beer orders down as low as I can.
You're just being really cautious about how much you open because you don't know what the future looks like.
No, I honestly think we will get shut down.
Health officials here in Bedford are doing everything they can to try and slow the spread of the Indian variant and avoid local restrictions. Anyone who's eligible is being urged to come and get a vaccination, and surge testing has begun. It's that data in hotspots like this that scientists will then scrutinise.
So far, there are some signs the vaccine is working against it.
The numbers are too small to really draw any conclusions. So there are unvaccinated people in hospital. There are also people who have had one dose of vaccine, and there are people who are vaccinated. But as I say, the numbers are small. I feel really reasonably optimistic that the vaccine is helping us.
It's not just how well the vaccines work, though, that's going to determine whether all restrictions lift.
We do have pretty good evidence that suggests it's more transmissible than other variants that have been circulating. But again, still some uncertainty regarding exactly how much more transmissible. And that's quite crucial when it comes to trying to determine what the optimal control policy should be going forwards regarding this variant.
Are your tickets and IDs ready?
Tonight, as opening up continues, football fans gathered at Old Trafford. With one of the hotspots, Bolton, just 14 miles away, it's one event the government will be watching extremely closely. Emily Morgan, ITV News.
And our political editor Robert Peston joins me now. OK, Robert, so the Prime Minister is publicly saying there is no information, no data that would indicate that things are going to be thrown off track. That's publicly. What are they saying privately? What are ministers telling you?
So last night I reported that those at the heart of the government were saying it's close to nil, that there won't be changes to what's planned in terms of unlocking on the 21st of June. But the rest of what the Prime Minister has said seems to me, on the basis of my conversations with senior people in the government, completely right, which is they simply haven't made up their minds yet what to do about this blooming Indian variant. They know that it's spreading very fast. They think that although the AstraZeneca vaccine is effective against serious illness, it's less effective against the Indian variant than against the Kent variant. And that's a worry because it would mean more people ending up in hospital. But they haven't yet got the data which tells them how they'll adjust the 21st of June. It might be that the unlocking will be delayed. It might be these regional tiers we've been talking about. And, you know, it might also just be that some aspects of the unlocking on June the 21st will change. So maybe we'll be told we still can't go back to work. Maybe we'll be told the 1.5 metre, 2 metre distance rule will have to stay in place. All to play for. I think most of us would say, though, that if they're going to roll back something, let it not be rolling back hugging. I think we must be able to keep that precious freedom.
Draw the line somewhere. Robert, thank you very much. Well, there was some more positive news, though, for Brits hoping to holiday in Europe this year. The EU is expected to allow any British tourists who've had both doses of the COVID vaccine to travel there. Now, that comes, of course, after Portugal accepted the first wave of travellers from England yesterday. And our Europe editor, James Mates, is in the Algarve, lucky man. What are we expecting to hear tomorrow, James?
Yeah, well, as you say, Portugal had already gone its own way, Greece moving that way too. So we think it's inevitable that tomorrow Brussels will agree to non-essential travel from Britain to the EU. For people who are fully vaccinated, that will be without restriction, and it seems likely they'll accept the NHS app as evidence, not the test and trace app, the regular one that holds your vaccination details. For those not fully vaccinated, it seems likely that they will need, at the very least, a negative COVID test. But we'll find out those details tomorrow. But assuming that happens, it would mean really the only obstacle to Britain's taking holidays in amber countries like France, Spain, Greece will be in London, not in Europe. And there is still considerable confusion there as to exactly what Britons are supposed to do. One minister said today, can't take a holiday, but you could visit friends and family. The Prime Minister immediately overruling, saying, no, even that's not allowed. You must only go there if you have pressing or urgent work needs. So in amongst this confusion, it appears that bookings to these countries are rising very fast, and the travel industry is pressing very hard indeed for the government to relax things, saying they're being too cautious. Vaccination numbers in Europe are going up fast, cases are coming down quickly, and they should take a softer line on it.
OK, James Mates in the Algarve, thank you. Well, here, detectives are ready to excavate the cellar of a cafe where it's thought a teenage victim of the serial killer Fred West may be buried. 15-year-old Mary Bastholm was last seen alive in 1968. Fred West was a regular at the cafe where Mary worked, and he even carried out some building work there. Well, new evidence unearthed by an ITV documentary team has prompted a thorough search of the site. And from the scene, here's our correspondent Rupert Evelyn.
53 years since a 15-year-old girl was last seen alive, and police are about to start digging in the place where she worked. Mary Bastholm disappeared in 1968. She'd been going to see her boyfriend for a game of Monopoly. She never arrived. Evidence from an ITV documentary team suggesting a body may be buried inside the cafe has prompted detectives to start excavating in a place they once completely ruled out.
You have seen nothing to suggest that there is a body there?
No, there is absolutely no information or evidence at this time to indicate that there is a body or Mary is buried within that basement. What we're doing now is we've got an opportunity once and for all to find out the truth for Mary's family about what has happened in that basement.
Serial killer Fred West was known to have been a customer at the cafe. Many suspect he abducted and killed Mary Bastholm. In the 90s, ITV filmed inside the cafe cellar, but only now has an item of blue material been found in one of 6 holes under the floor. Mary was thought to have been wearing blue when she vanished. Theories about what happened to the teenager span 5 decades. Not long after she went missing, her parents shared their ideas.
Well, personally, myself, I think she took a lift from someone she knew. This could have been someone that perhaps came into the cafe.
She went out about between 10 and 7:15 to catch the 25 past or about that time bus.
Leo Goatley was Rose West's solicitor. He once asked her about Mary's case while she denied knowledge. He believes she has secrets to tell.
It's a very murky, horrible, wicked, sinister catalogue of events. I doubt they're going to get anything out of Rose West. And of course, she's not going to voluntarily speak to them, so they'd have to arrest her on suspicion.
Fred West killed 12 times, the majority with his wife Rose. It's now possible the grim murder total may be about to rise.
Excavation work begins here tomorrow, and if you want a sense of the significance of all of this, I spoke today to Tim Merritt. He is the former boyfriend of Mary Bastholm, who she was going to visit back in 1968. He said to me that if they don't find anything here, it will have been an unnecessary strain on all those involved. If they do, he said, it will be closure.
Rupert Evelyn in Gloucester, thank you. The US President Joe Biden has expressed his support for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, but he stopped short of demanding an immediate end to the violence there. It came as Israeli forces pounded Gaza with more airstrikes and Hamas fired more rockets. And a Palestinian protester was killed in the occupied West Bank. From the Israel-Gaza border, our senior international correspondent John Irvine sent this report.
If there is one thing limiting fatalities in Israel, this is it. These are Iron Dome interceptor missiles on the hunt for incoming Hamas rockets just unleashed from Gaza. The success rate is 90%. This system is so clever it can differentiate between Hamas rockets that are going to land in populated areas and ones that are going to land harmlessly. It'll try to intercept the former while ignoring the latter. By contrast, in Gaza, there is nothing to impede incoming ordnance. And at night in particular, it's not just darkness that falls. The Israelis claim this is a tunnel network being destroyed. The United Nations says that above ground, the Israelis have destroyed or badly damaged almost 450 buildings. Again, according to the UN, more than 50,000 Gazans have had to leave home. Most have taken refuge in UN schools where they should be safe. This family lived next door to a building toppled by the Israelis in the early hours of this morning. Israeli intelligence phoned and gave us just 5 minutes to get out. We had to grab our sons and daughters and run, said the owner. To protest Israel's treatment of them everywhere, Palestinians today staged widespread demonstrations on the West Bank and in Israel. Clashes with Israeli security forces were inevitable, and some of the worst of it was in Ramallah, where exchanges of gunfire represent another worrying development. The protests amount to rare collective action by Palestinians across the Holy Land, underlining their unity and their anger. John Irvine, ITV News, Tel Aviv.
Still to come, the ITV Evening News, the fire safety concerns of leaseholders and why our survey was raised in Parliament today. Plus, the Corrie superfans hoping against hope for the ultimate soap sleepover. Those stories and more after the break. Join me then. Welcome back. ITV News has learned that residents living in homes with fire safety defects are facing problems far beyond just dangerous cladding. A survey we conducted found that leaseholders are having to deal with combustible balconies, ineffective fire doors and inadequate alarms. Well, details of our survey were even raised in the House of Commons today. Our consumer editor, Chris Choi, has this special report.
This fire happened 11 days ago. Preparations were already underway to remove cladding on some parts of New Providence Wharf in London, along with timber balcony decking. Miriam Chowdhury had to escape her high-rise flat.
It's so pitch black and dark, you can't breathe, your eyes are stinging, and you don't know how far away the fire is because you have zero visibility. It was terrifying. I was, contemplating, is this a point where I call my parents and say goodbye, because honestly, I didn't know if I was going to get out.
The block's developers say it fully complied with regulations when built and that complexity of this site has slowed repairs. They insist that most cladding on the building is non-combustible and that many safety features did help stop flames. Mariam Chowdhury says the fire is a stark warning for policymakers.
Reorganise and prioritise people's lives, because ultimately, what could be more important than that?
We surveyed more than 1,000 people with flats affected by fire safety defects across the country. It highlights issues going far beyond cladding, including combustible balconies and walkways, defective fire breaks, ineffective fire doors and inadequate alarms. Details of our survey were given in Parliament today.
As ITV's survey of leaseholders out today showed, this issue goes way beyond cladding and way beyond the current criteria.
Through the biggest improvements to building safety regulation for a generation. Building on the Fire Safety Act, it will embed the new building safety regulator as part of a wide-ranging, rigorous approach to regulating the built environment in this country.
In Sheffield, another block with potential fire hazards, including unsafe insulation and inadequate alarms.
They are things that have been basically uncovered. So you peel back cladding, look behind, and you realise it's like a Pandora's box of all these other problems.
The Grenfell Tower still stands, destined to be a memorial site. Many believe honouring those who lost their lives must include urgently removing dangers that still blight too many of our buildings. Chris Choi, ITV News.
We look at other news now, and a police officer is being investigated by the Met's Directorate of Professional Standards after being filmed shouting "Free Palestine" during a demonstration in London. Clips of the officer were posted on Twitter. The Met says its officers must remain independent and impartial whilst on duty, and it is investigating. Obesity played a role in over 1 million hospital admissions in England in the last year, according to NHS digital data. It's a 17% increase on the previous year, and women accounted for almost 2/3 of the cases. And the former QPR youth player Kyan Prince has been added to the football video game FIFA 21 to mark the 15th anniversary of his death. The 15-year-old was stabbed to death trying to break up a fight at school. The club says it hopes his addition to the game will encourage more young people to put down their knives. Now, a nurse who treated Boris Johnson when he was seriously ill with coronavirus has quit over the government's 1% pay offer. Jenny McGee, who worked at St Thomas's Hospital in London when the Prime Minister was admitted in April last year, says she is just sick of the way nurses are treated. Sangeeta Lal is outside the hospital now. So, Sangeeta, what exactly did she say?
Well, Jenny McGee said that she left because of the government's lack of respect for the nursing profession. She told a Channel 4 documentary that earlier this year, when a 1% pay rise was offered to some NHS staff, it was pretty much the final straw for her. Now, she became very well known, a public figure really, for the Prime Minister Boris Johnson's care team when he was treated here in April last year for coronavirus. She didn't leave his bedside for days and was thanked by the Prime Minister and invited to a Downing Street party which involved a clap for carers, one she since said she wanted to stay out of because it made for a good photo opportunity. Now, we've all seen Boris Johnson give public appreciation for the NHS staff through the pandemic. Many nurses now saying that the government didn't lead them effectively through the pandemic and were indecisive. Jenny McGee now saying that she was just sick of it and handed in her notice. Now, this comes after the Royal College for Nursing estimated a 1% pay rise would equate to about £3.50 extra a week for experienced nurses. The government, though, say they are extremely grateful for the care NHS staff have provided throughout the pandemic, which is why NHS employees have been exempt from the public sector-wide pay freeze.
Sangeeta Lal outside St Thomas's Hospital. Thank you. And model Naomi Campbell has become a mother to a baby girl. The 50-year-old shared a picture on Instagram to announce the news. She wrote, "A beautiful little blessing has chosen me to be her mother. So honoured to have this gentle soul in my life." And finally, if you are struggling to find somewhere to holiday this year, how about a night on the Corrie Cobbles? The new Weatherfield set includes an annex in the Rover's return. An overnight stay also includes hot pot and a tour of the street. And there is a catch, though. There's only one room for two, and it's for one night only. Here's Martha Fairley.
A bijou property with an unassuming red brick exterior, located on one of the most famous streets in the country. The Rover's annex is not part of a new storyline, but instead the opportunity for two soap superfans to spend a night living right on Coronation Street. They can relive iconic Corrie moments like this right where they happened and spend the evening strolling the street to discover its secrets.
It will be a unique and rather kind of bizarrely memorable experience that they'll be able to tell their grandchildren about. What did you do at the end of the pandemic? Well, I spent the night on that street there, the most famous street in Britain. Pretty amazing thing to be able to say. But I think it also allows them to have a proper nosy around.
Inside there are no flying ducks or murals, but guests in this pop-up Airbnb will be treated to hot pot, breakfast from Roy's Rolls and a tour of the street to make this night on the cobbles complete. The two lucky guests will spend a unique night sleeping just yards away from the Rover's return. And where else in the world can you wake up to this unrivalled view of Weatherfield? And for Corrie superfan Angie, a stay in the annex would be a dream come true.
I think to any fan, it's a golden opportunity. It's the best opportunity to be there where the actors play their roles, to be part of Coronation Street. Just wonderful.
For those seeking a staycation with added drama, this might be right up their street. Martha Fairley, ITV News on Coronation Street.
Hope they behave themselves, and that's it for now. Julie's here at 10 from me and all the team. Bye-bye.